Thank you everyone for making time out of very busy pre-Christmas schedules to be with us today. My name is Stephen Mitchell. I'm Advocacy and Marketing Director with EPD Australasia, and I welcome today Andrea Davies, National Sustainability Manager for Laminex Australia. Um, so the structure today will be I'm doing a short presentation, as will and Andrea. I'll introduce Andrea, and she'll have a short presentation, and then we will be having a conversation, a structured conversation about her experience with EPDs, and also we'll open it up to questions as well. So please use the Q&A function on Zoom. If you've got any questions, please feel free to add those during the course of the webinar, and we can get those at the end. So we'll have plenty of time for questions at that stage. Okay, so just a bit of an update about EPD Australasia. Our EPDs have really taken off in the last couple of years in Australia and New Zealand. We have over 3,500 EPDs registered with the Australasian EPD program here. Globally, this is some stats from Jane Anderson, who monitors this every year. At the beginning of this year, there was over 180,000 EPDs for construction products globally, mainly in the United States, but as well as Europe and Australia and New Zealand. Number of organisations who have joined us here at EPD Australasia continues to grow strongly. And welcome to all the EPD owners here on the webinar today. You're in good company. We have over 170 members joining with EPDs registered with us. Laminex Australia and New Zealand, two of our valued members. I also wanted to highlight some of the top 4 drivers for EPDs in Australia and New Zealand, Australasia. And this is from our stakeholder survey we held a couple of months ago, and thank you very much for people who replied to that. The top 4 reasons: recognition and rating tools, wanting to do the right thing, quantify the carbon impacts of our products, and customer demands for EPDs. So that came through quite strongly in our survey results. I'll just expand on a couple of those. The recognition and rating tools. EPD, Australasian EPDs are recognised for their multiple impact disclosure by the Green Star systems in Australia and New Zealand, as well as the Infrastructure Sustainability Council's IS rating scheme, which operate both in Australia and New Zealand, and also in Europe and America by the green building schemes in those regions. But we also recognise for the upfront carbon disclosures by Neighbours, Climate Active program in Australia, Ministry of Business, Innovation and Employment in New Zealand, as well as the Declare label. Important EPDs are recognised through those other mechanisms. Other drivers globally, some of you may be aware of as well, is in Australia and New Zealand, we now have mandatory climate disclosure, and a lot of that is on the schedule with Scope 3 requirements, which EPDs can be very useful in that regard. A lot of businesses have absolute and net zero targets, and with the more guidance from the Australian and New Zealand competition authorities, that's a big driver for companies to reduce their risk by understanding their impact of their products. In the European Union, there's an updated construction products regulation, which is driving uptake in environmental disclosure, and Eco Platform, of which we are a member via our association with the International EPD System. We're a big part of the Eco Platform network, and one of the big drivers for Eco Platform is to help people comply with the requirements of that construction product regulation there. And in the US, there's still things happening in terms of demand for EPDs being largely driven now by the Buy Clean California Act, which has requirements for a whole range of construction products there, which is driving the uptake of EPDs for those particular products. And just to note about the European Union's construction products regulation, here's the schedule of environmental impacts that they'll be looking at from next year. It'll be climate change effects are the big are the ones that people will have to provide as their in their performance information that they will have to provide, and there's a schedule there for other life cycle assessment impacts that people will have to provide over that timetable. Now, this is a very brief overview. There's some good webinars there on that subject if you are exporting to Europe. Very good webinar link there. We'll be producing a news item about um, this afternoon, and I'll direct you to those after we've had our conversation. So with that, I'll hand over to Andrea. Welcome, Andrea. Um, Andrea has more than 15 years experience across the building infrastructure and manufacturing sectors. Her expertise spans sustainability strategy, industry collaboration, and connecting business objectives with environmental and social impact. Before joining Laminex, Andrea was a senior green building and strategy specialist with ThinkStep ANZ, a sustainability consultancy, and she is a Green Star accredited professional and a former corporate lawyer. So over to you, Andrea.
Thanks, Steve. Nice to be here with you all today. I'll just take you through some introductory information about Laminex for anyone who's unaware of who we are and what we do. So this next slide, good on you, Steve. So I think Laminex, most Australian people would have heard of Laminex before and would associate Laminex with kitchen bench tops. So yes, we're a leading Australian manufacturer and distributor of decorative surface materials for residential and commercial interiors. Our key products are MDF and particle board, which are wood fibre panels, and also laminates. We have a national footprint, 7 plants in 7 locations and across 4 states. And our vision is to create better spaces for all Australians. So that's, trying to think about the spaces that we help our customers to design, the places and spaces that our employees work in, and also the natural world around us. Next slide, Steve. We've published in this year 7 EPDs. That's across our particle board and MDF products, both raw and decorated, and our new wall and ceiling panels. Our partners in that were ThinkStep ANZ. It was great to work with them again. Life Cycle Logic, and of course EPD Australasia. There's an example there on the right of our new classic flat wall panels. That's what a Laminex EPD looks like. They're all 7 of them look similar to that, and you can find them on the EPD Australasia website. And I just thought it was important to, next slide, Steve, to point out that EPDs have been a really significant step for Laminex, not only indicating to our customers in the market that we're stepping up in this space, but it's also been important for our parent company, Fletcher Building, to help align with their strategic goals. So particularly their goal around sustainable or revenue from sustainably certified products. So Laminex Australia is a significant contributor to that. It's also helped us to understand how we're tracking on and contribute to the parent company's net zero goals. It was also an important part of our eco-label refresh this year. Laminex has started, I guess I call it, we've fallen in love with our products again this year as we've gone through putting in place EPDs and moving to GECA and Declare. And it's really helped us to meet market needs. In days gone by, an EPD was a nice to have, but it's now we've found to be in our area a standard expectation, and a big part of helping our customers to meet their Green Star goals. So that's just an overview of how EPDs have contributed to Laminex and our parent company throughout 2025.
Oh, thanks, Andrea. That was a good sort of background to where we're at, so we can start our conversation. I have a few questions here to get us started, but we can also take questions from others if you want. Just if you've got access to the Q&A function, please put those in. But one question I have is in my experience working with companies with the data gathering side of things, it's going to be a pretty resource intensive phase of developing the EPDs. And with those seven manufacturing sites you mentioned before, it's would have been a quite a big task. But what did you really learn from that
Um,
process?
I th I think the biggest learning was that it takes a village. That's my way, I guess, of saying that across our sites and the various functions, and also our suppliers, there are a lot of people that you need to speak to gather the relevant data. Um, so obviously being prepared for that and allowing time to be able to have those conversations and get the right data is something you need to keep in mind. So
Hmm.
we came across data in various formats and with varying degrees of quality. So our learnings would be to definitely to allow time and be prepared to wait and also be prepared to explain or have meaningful conversations about what EPDs are and how valuable they are for the business so that you can get buy-in from the people that you're
Hmm.
going to need to ask to contribute time and effort to get the right data. Um,
Hmm.
the other thing, of course, is recognizing that external stakeholders, so your suppliers will often hold key data. So again, allowing for time and being prepared to explain what an EPD is. It's not a given that everybody knows what that is,
Hmm.
and why you're asking them for that sort of information and data, and to be patient, recognizing that other people's data is often important or valuable to them. It's their IP, and they're not always keen to share that when you first ask for it. So yeah, that's I would say, um, you know, recognizing the time it would take and the conversations that you need to have to get the right data.
Yeah, right. Lynette Sherry has a question there that's just come through. Do you have international suppliers with EPDs and how do you use them in your EPDs?
We probably didn't have that many international suppliers with EPDs that we use to contribute data for our EPDs. Our procurement um, uh, function does use EPDs or rely on EPDs in some of the decisions that they take.
Hmm.
But I guess to be clear, I wasn't at Laminex when a lot of the initial data collection was done for these EPDs. But
Hmm.
I do know that there were many late night conversations with suppliers in international destinations. Some of those were, from what I understand, fairly fraught conversations, and that that they were needing to get primary data themselves. So that could be a reflection of the fact that that sort of other heavier, more impactful products, maybe have better or hold better data and have been doing this type of work for years, whereas um, our sort of lighter building products, maybe in the earlier phases of gathering that sort of data. Perhaps that's just a thought.
Oh, are you talking about cement suppliers and steel
Yes, yeah,
suppliers, those sort of
yeah,
things? Yeah,
potentially.
yeah,
I'm just thinking, um, you know, I don't have any credible data or research to support that. I'm just
yeah.
thinking that, uh, uh,
Where
reflecting
demand's been
on the
stronger for
development
longer.
that,
Yeah,
yes, that, I would say that Laminex, probably the requests for EPDs have started to filter into us in the last 12 months, to 12 to 18 months. It's not something that's been on the radar in our world, because we just
yeah,
haven't been a significant portion of the carbon impact of a building.
yeah. But you do have seven manufacturing plants.
Yes.
So maybe describe to the participants a bit about how you, I think you staged the EPDs, is that right?
we we started we had an interesting journey, and we did change tack in the middle of it. So we started with our laminates at our Cheltenham plant, and initially the decision was taken to sort of do an EPD or an LCA at product level. So Laminex is a business with thousands of SKUs, but when you sort of peel the surfaces back, we really are a business that makes lots of colours and finishes for a very I'm not going to say basic, it's not the best word, but for a fairly small quantity of products. So we've got MDF, particle board, HPL, and compact laminate predominantly.
Mm.
But we
Mm.
produce those either raw or decorated, and once decorated with a varying a, a lot of colors and a lot of finishes. So having attempted to do the products at our Cheltenham plant at a product level, we discovered that we were going to be doing 25 to 30 LCAs and EPDs, which wasn't practical at all. So, and it simply wasn't required by our customers either. So that was I think, an intense data gathering exercise, and the decision was taken once those were done to reduce the scope to product family. So the
Mm.
timber products, the MDF and particle board products were done at a product family level, which is why we have 7 of those that will cover
Mm.
all of those variants, whether they're
Variants, yeah.
decorated or a wall or ceiling panel, whether it's particle board or MDF. So yes,
Hmm.
there was a learning there that with lots of plants that in the end produce very similar products, that the sensible way to go was to do them at product family level, which also aligned with the way that we certify our we'll get the other eco labels. So Gecko
Oh
or
yeah.
Declare and so on, they're all in product families. So it also makes sense from that perspective as well.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a good segue maybe to how you sort of broke up those product families, and then obviously the other programs have their sort of requirements. So, um, would you have been able to get data for those other certifications without this process, or
We would have
would
it's
yeah.
by we would have got there by having the all the data that we collected for our EPDs in a comprehensive set of spreadsheets. That data at product level, which we needed to do to get the LCAs, and then merge those, I suppose, as a product family. We
Hmm.
had really, really good data at product level for all of our products. So it meant that when we refreshed our eco labels this year, when we decided to obtain declare labels, we had all of that data sitting in a handy spreadsheet, or a number of handy spreadsheets that we could use, we could leverage those. So it was it was a very, very good thing to go through the EPD process, gather all of that data, have it in one central place, and be able to use it again and again and again.
Yeah, right. Okay. Um, but there's other besides the certifications, sort of they alluded to some of the other drivers for the EPD sort of development. How have you come across the now that you've got it, the impact information, you've got that data, have you using that for other purposes?
Um, Absolutely. So there were obviously recommendations that came out of the LCA for the business, or for Laminex and its products. So I guess that having done the EPDs, having good quality data and good quality EPDs, we were able to, look through that lens and look at our products and understand and validate, or otherwise other activities either at parent company level or at our business unit level. So the the business and Fletcher Building obviously have an energy uh, uh, roadmap, which includes solar and PPAs, etc.
Mm.
Through understanding that renewable electricity is a big part of our footprint, or our it's a hotspot for Laminex. We knew that anyway, but having the data there is helpful for us to understand where we sit and what we need to
Mhm.
do
Mhm.
with the energy roadmap. Um, it also pointed out, again, no surprise to us, that we needed to reduce material waste. So it just helps us to have, I guess, measured or measurements or data that helps to support the activities in that space. A really
Mm.
big insight, or a key insight, was our ability to quantify our downstream emissions, which we wouldn't have known with any certainty without high quality EPDs. So having the GWP broken down into biogenic and fossil emissions
Mhm.
has was incredibly helpful for our Scope 3 emissions calculation by our parent company. I know our carbon manager was both surprised but also happy to finally have data right across the organisation in the form of EPDs, so that um, he could sort of look at quality data for the greenhouse gas emissions um,
Reporting.
reporting. Sorry, had a brain fade there.
That's
Um,
all right.
so, so for our climate-related disclosures, it also at a business unit level was great for us. I think to understand from an industry perspective that fossil-based resins are impactful, and there's a
Hmm.
need right across the industry, not just for Laminex, obviously, and right across the industry to think about and adopt resins with lower fossil footprints, if possible, as and
Hmm.
when they become available.
Hmm.
And I guess not a surprise to us, but just a good, as I said, a good hard set of facts and data around the need to promote recycling and reuse of panels. From an industry
Oh, that's
perspective,
when you were talking about downstream
yes,
impacts. Then
yeah, yeah.
that's you're
So
talking about the end of life of the product.
absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
So at a at an industry level, there's a tendency for us to accept that landfill is inevitable for our products. So
Mm.
having good quality data sitting there staring at us in the face, it makes me personally anyway believe, or sort of try to think about what action we can take to find better end of life solutions. So that
Hmm.
can include recycling or repurposing or new technologies, whatever as an industry. The engineered wood products industry can do to find better solutions at end of life to reduce those emissions at end of life. So all of that is
Mm.
probably certainly the energy and recycling type of actions are things that you know about, and you sort of commit to making progress on. But having
Mm.
that data that really highlighted the resins as a
Really quantified it and
yeah
pinpointed
as
it.
something to
Yeah.
work on. You've got a number, you've got data that you can help to to convince those people above you within your organization that makes these decisions about R&D.
Yeah.
It's really helpful.
Yeah. Did you mentioned before you got solar panels, I think in the Ballarat plant.
Yes,
Was that something that predated the EPDs? But
it was part of the
yeah,
the
and
the
that got
roadmap that
incorporated.
no, it
Yeah.
was before. The panels went in before we collected the data for these EPDs, so it'll be something that will be incorporated in the next update to our EPDs. But the sort of the the process of doing the LCAs just highlighted to us how important process emissions reduction is to us as a business.
Yeah. Another question from Lynette, Andrea, by the way. Because do you have sister companies that have EPDs, and were they
Yes,
able to be used?
for us, or
Yeah.
for at parent company level for. for greenhouse gas calculations.
Yeah, I suppose maybe Lynette, maybe if you want to explain a bit further, do you mean from the for the input side of things, suppliers, or yeah, because I know you're part of the Fletcher Building Group,
At parent, I
who
can say without, I can say at parent company level, our carbon manager having access to good quality EPDs across the portfolio, because having EPDs is something that Fletcher Building really reinforced and
mm,
stimulated, I guess, across the business units. So our carbon manager having those EPDs and that data in there enabled him, I think, for the first time to benchmark to have a good quality benchmark for our scope 3 emissions, or some of our scope 3 emissions downstream.
yeah, right. Lynette has another question. How long did it take you from the time you submitted the data to develop the LCA, and did you use a consultant?
We use a consultant, absolutely. We use ThinkStep, and our verifier was Andrew Moore. So uh, it's it, the consultant was obviously to do the LCA, not to gather the data. That's something that we did internally. I
Mm,
believe, as I said, I wasn't present for the data gathering, or most of the data gathering. I believe that took a long time, and it did happen. Some of it during the COVID phase, which might have made
mm,
the process a little bit more difficult than it might have been
mm,
otherwise. Um,
yeah.
and then when we engaged ThinkStep we already had that data collected. We did have some further requests, or sort of clarifications that we needed to make to that data.
Mm,
I think I think the process of gathering the data would have taken at least 12 months,
mm, yeah. It's just
possibly
starting
longer.
from really ground zero. Yeah.
Yes, we were ground zero.
Mm,
Our I guess you could look at it in a glass half full way. Our sites, because the business is a quite an old business, our sites have um, tend to hold data, and I guess have processes that are very specific to their location and their manufacturing process. So the process of having to do something collective like an EPD or an LCA meant that Amanda, who initially was collecting this data or requesting it, had to go to every site and start trying to dig and pull that data in the format that it might have been at that particular site.
mm,
So some of the data, some of the requirements were held at a at a business unit level and were right across the business, but other specific information would have been very specific to the manufacturing plant, and that
mm.
that would have been time intensive to pull that into one sort of one spreadsheet.
One system. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, well, just want to move to another question more about the circular economy measures in your EPD and maybe a bit more outward focusing. We've talked a lot about the internal process, and I see there's a lot of the EPD uses a lot of reporting on the second use of secondary materials, and I see that you have your MCI indicator as included in your EPDs. Can you elaborate on what the drivers are for those,
Um,
including those?
Yeah, I think, well, again, I'd have to thank our parent company for recommending, and our sustainability manager, Farhan, for recommending that MCI be included in our EPDs. We probably wouldn't have thought about it ourselves,
Mm,
but the recommendation was there, and ThinkStep also were aware of that recommendation, having had done them, for other Fletcher Building business units. So we
hmm
thought that sounded like a great idea, and the data was there. It made sense to include it, rather than try and do it further down the track at additional cost. It
hmm
turned out to be a really timely and good decision to include it,
hmm
because obviously circularity is becoming a bigger and bigger feature of design and of, I guess, of the way that people look at look at the way we do things and the products that we use. So, with the development of standards around circularity, there's increasing focus on what does it actually mean to when you say you're circular or your product or your process is
Mm.
more circular than someone else. In the absence of an MCI or some other sort of tool or measurement, those claims are really hard to break down and understand and
Mm-hmm.
compare. So
Mm-hmm.
having the MCI, having a score, gives us a starting point to A, have a conversation, B,
Mm-hmm.
if there is a good story to tell, and there largely is with a timber product, there's a measurement, there's some data, there's a conversation that we can have on the back of that. And having just done the feedback or for the consultation for the responsible products framework that GBCA has out at the moment, I can see that MCI is being adopted by Green Star. So,
Mm.
as I said, very timely. We're very, very happy that we've done that. I think it's going to be a game changer.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that is timely. We're still submitting our feedback, finalizing our feedback. So
Mm.
deadline's tomorrow. So it's interesting. Now maybe then we were talking a bit about Green Star, and that's obviously a big market driver in the office construction business. A lot of your joinery customers are supplying. So why have you used those other certifications you talked about before?
There's a number of reasons. First and foremost, Laminex has held these types of certifications, I think, for 15 odd years. They were
Mm,
an early adopter of an eco label. So I think that it would be difficult for us, even if we wanted to drop those. I think people would want to know why. That's
hmm
not the whole reason or indeed the best reason. It's simply one of the factors that we consider. Um, so I guess we also need to take into account that we have a wide range of customers. So we'll have people we'll have customers who are, you know, either through the government procurement policy or through their own investors seeking a Green Star rating, and uh, having those eco labels is important to get the points that they need under the responsible products system and also elsewhere in the tool. There are also customers out there who are not necessarily seeking a Green Star certification, but want to be comforted or you know
hmm
want to have peace of mind that it's an overall good product. So I'm thinking there about our residential customers, maybe home renovators
hmm
who may not look or be particularly interested in a necessarily just a carbon footprint or in an EPD, but will ask for some other sort of form of certification to give them comfort around the product. So to fill that need, our
hmm
our sort of general eco label, it has been this year moved to GECA, provides that sort of coverage of environmental and human health factors, social impacts, and product performance. So again, something like GECA will give a customer comfort that it's fit for purpose, the product that we're selling. So that's a unique
mm
sort of perspective, or eco label to have. The
Yeah.
declare label is becoming a great accompaniment to whether it's a GECA label or a EPD, because it delves a level deeper than the sort of information that you'll typically see in an EPD. That was a
It's on the ingredient side of
Yes,
things.
it's so it's
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's not just it's not just your input, but it's the input in your input. So you're really digging as deep down into the inputs into your product. as you can. So that's
Mm.
we've found a lot of interest and increasing interest in that label. So it's a good signal to the to our customers that we're prepared to and keen to to give them as much information as we can about what's in our products. It's good for
Yeah,
us
right.
because it also makes us I guess take notice of exactly what those ingredients are in the products that we put into our own products. So it keeps our R&PD team on their toes and looking for
Yeah, right.
alternatives if there needs to be. And then
Yeah.
obviously PEFC. So that's a chain of custody certification that we wouldn't be in business if we didn't have, and we wouldn't want to inadvertently
That's about
source.
the sustainability of the wood
That's right.
raw
Yep.
material, the wood
So
inputs.
yeah, so we see the
Yeah.
package, the EPD, plus these other eco labels as they all have their roles. They all do or speak to the various people who want that type of information right across our customer base.
Yeah, right. Okay. Um, that's really important overview, I think, of those certifications that Laminex have sought and
Yeah,
obtained.
I
I
think
just got
the
a
other,
question. Yeah.
sorry, I'll just add to that because I think it's something that's come through this last 12 months of doing EPDs and renewing our eco labels is that they're very, very costly. They're a significant investment for a business like Laminex or other
Mm,
businesses or smaller businesses. Um, and and doing them, I guess we see as an opportunity. It gives us an incredible amount of information and data, um, from a very specific lens. It's not from a financial lens. It's from a sustainability lens, and it's important to help us improve. So um,
mm,
you can fall into it, I guess, a pattern of just renewing your eco labels or getting comfortable
yeah.
with where you are.
Yep.
And when you embrace the eco label for I guess as a something that will enable you to continuously improve, then that investment in that and the work that you put into it is paying you back
Mm,
tenfold.
yeah, right. I think you've described really well how each of those certifications, EPDs, labels, they work across different aspects of your business and
Mm,
in delivering something
yeah.
different to
I think
different
I'm one of the
markets as
mad
well.
people who's been through it all and actually has come out the other end thinking what a great ride it's been.
Yeah, right. Wow. Um, I've just got another couple of questions
Sure.
here as well, Andrea. Thought we'd cover off. Your upstream is an important raw material. Obviously, is wood. We talked about dust and the PFC certification. Does the production of if your product use the same suppliers of wood, or do you, I suppose, each manufacturing site, or do you have flexibility to change supply over time?
I guess uh, that's I wouldn't like to steal our procurement team's thunder because they manage all of that. What I do know is that timber is an incredibly valuable resource and that long-term contracts are always very important. Our
Mm.
timber's all sourced in Australia,
Mm.
so we have long-term contracts in place with suppliers in on the East Coast and on the West Coast because we have our large MDF plant in Queensland
Mm.
and our large particle board plant in WA. Our other plants are around the Victoria, essentially in Victoria. They deal mostly with paper, so that's our decorating plant
Mm.
at Ballarat and our laminate plant at Cheltenham. So they're dealing a
Mm.
lot with paper either as a
Mm.
decorative or as a base product. So it's
Oh,
probably a
okay.
long answer, but mainly our timber's sourced from Australia. It's sourced close to our factories in WA and Queensland.
But I assume talking about that, the paper source that you probably find that the source of that could vary
Yes,
because might be
absolutely.
produced quality of a product that probably not something that you could source in Australia with the closure in
There are some
a lot of paper
Australian,
mills or the high.
yeah,
Yeah.
there are some Australian suppliers, but a lot of our suppliers, as you said, Steve, come from international suppliers.
So I suppose maybe the gist of that question then maybe is, can that be, because there's one criticism of EPDs is they're not very flexible, but can you handle that within the EPD? What's the different impact of different paper products, and can you handle that within the EPD without having to update them every 3 months? You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think that there's that level of, I don't think that impact is of a size that would require a review or an update to an EPD. I think
Mm,
even with the adoption of the solar at Ballarat, that doesn't even move the dial that much. So
right.
I don't think a
It's the
change.
electricity input that was much bigger.
Yeah, so I
Yeah,
don't think a change
impact.
in one or a number of paper suppliers um, would move the dial
Yeah.
on an EPD.
Another question that's come through, and please put some more questions through if you have them. Was there any additional costs for the material circulator indicator that you,
Yes,
uh, yes,
yeah. There was it.
yeah,
I can't remember off the top of my head what it was. It wasn't significant, and it made sense to do it at the time. It was I guess it was more cost effective to do it as part of an EPD than it was
yeah,
if we decided, or had we not known about that, and had we sort of decided, sometime next year to try and work on something that would help us communicate circularity and speak to those measures or, things that are starting to pop up in Green Star and so on. I think it would have cost at least twice what it did cost to do as part of the
yeah, right.
EPDs, possibly more.
Yeah, because there's a lot of the information's in common, and it's just a matter
Yes,
of
it
putting
is.
it
They're working with
together
the same.
according to a
Yes,
different standard, ISO of
yes,
15 or something. Oh, I can't
yeah,
remember the standard
yeah.
name
I
off the top of my head.
I guess also if you think about the MCI in a similar way to the way you might think when you first do an EPD is let's benchmark where we're at because we want to improve. So to
Yeah,
improve, you need to know where you're at. So on all of those other indicators that are in an EPD, that's where you say, well, this is where we're at.
yeah,
MCI is exactly the same. So at this point in time, having done the MCI, we have an MCI score, and we can say, okay, this is where we're at now, and any step that we take to change or to improve in that space, we can measure against that benchmark. So
yeah,
another good
right.
reason to do
Because
it, I would say.
yeah, that MCI indicator itself is it's not just about recycled content, it's about service life, durability. Are
Yes.
there any
The,
particular aspect that
yeah,
you
and the
learned
the
from that?
actual
Yeah,
the input, the raw materials that go into it in the first place as well.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
Or whether they're biological or
yes,
fossil based or
yeah,
yeah. So it suits a whole range of materials,
mm,
but it's more holistic in terms of just it's not just about recycled content.
that's
Yeah,
right. It's good because it's not to take away in any way from recycling because that's a hugely important part of trying to do better with materials, but it isn't all about recycling, and it does open up that conversation to what circularity is and to I guess to the trade-offs you might like or not like to make. But
yeah,
it's a more nuanced sort of conversation than just, yes, we've got 25% recycled content in our product.
yeah, yeah. Which is often sometimes a product of where your facility is located if you've got
Mm,
access to that resource. But
mm,
it's yeah. But just as a heads up to the listeners today, we'll EPD Australasia will be doing more webinars next year, and one of the first ones off the cab off the rank will be talking more about circular economy and the indicators in EPDs for circular economy, as well as including the MCI indicator. So um, there's just a second part to that question, Andrea, that why wouldn't these all be included in every EPD, an MCI indicator in every EPD? Because it's not a mandatory requirement in every EPD. That's right?
That's right. Well, I guess Steve, you'd have better able to until the rules change, until
Yeah,
EPDs, until the EPD rules change to require MCI in an EPD, then it's always going to be elective. But
yeah,
I would say it it could be the data's there. It could be something that is widely adopted as just another part of doing an EPD. But in the end, it
yeah,
until unless and until it becomes mandatory, it would just be something that we'd like to see, but we can't make you do. That's up
yeah.
to you,
Well, I
Steve,
know a
to
lot of
to
E
to convince people that it's a good idea.
Yeah, well, it's just a heads up that you can include other environmental information in their EPD, and that also has to go through the verification process. It's not a mandatory component, but any other environmental related information that you do provide also has to be checked off by the verifier.
And
That's the
that's a
process
really
you would
good
have gone
point.
through.
Is
Yeah,
that on that topic is that once you've done it, if it is in your EPD and you want to be able to, um, to
make a claim
communicate
about it.
about it and
Yeah,
make, that is a verified, it's been checked by a third party, it's a verified claim, and that's really important.
yeah. Well, that's our next question, which has just popped up. How did you find the EPD verification process itself?
Great. I think I'm not sure whether I'm allowed to say plug verifiers. I think you get who is available at the time, but we had Andrew Moore. He did a great job. The whole team was very supportive, and I wouldn't have changed any of the people involved. And I'd look a call out to EPD Australasia as well for their support throughout the tail end when you've got through all the hard yards.
Mhm.
You've finally got your LCAs. You've got your data verified. You've done all the layout. I mean, another call out is that completely underestimated the time involved in actually getting it into a publishable document.
Mm.
That's a beast in itself, but you've finally
Yeah.
got over all of those hurdles, and you need to get it up on the EPD Australasia website and all of that sort of thing. That went very smoothly as well.
Oh, great. Oh, that's really good to hear. Just as a heads up for other listeners as well, there is you can take a designed approach to your EPD, or there's a basic template that the system provides as well. So it depends where you're placed in the marketing side of things with your certifications and your EPD. I think is that a fair assessment, Andrea?
It is. It's that there's always the whether you have to navigate a corporate style guide and all of that sort of stuff. But regardless, there are a lot of numbers and data in there, and
Mm,
that needs to be populated, and
mm,
that regardless, it takes time.
mm,
Is getting it all set out and all the tables filled in and everything else. And also, making sure that the claims that are in there or the wording is expressed and approved by the verifier. There is always little tweaks here and there that need to be done to make it to get it through the verification process, and it might take 2 or 3 rounds to get there. So
mm.
it's just something that maybe in the enthusiasm and everything else around doing EPDs is allowing the time to finalize the document itself.
Yeah, and Andrew Moore, we at our EPD conferences early in the year in Sydney and Melbourne, he emphasizes good document control and version control is a very important part of
Mm.
that process. So that, and he also advises please never call a document final. But I think version control is critical to so that everyone's on the same page and talking about the same document. Yeah. that
Yeah.
was something that I think really resonated with me from his presentation.
Yeah.
Um, so we haven't got any more questions coming through. Please put them through. We've got a few minutes more. Um, I think we've answered the questions through there, most of them. Oh, Welling, another one from Lynette earlier. When selling to customers, can you use their EPD? I don't know what that question. Don't quite understand that question. But I suppose just to maybe expand on that, are customers asking you for this information?
Yes,
Asking you to send them?
absolutely, and for different reasons. So, um, there will be people asking for EPDs because they want a particular, they want a number from that. They want the carbon footprint. Um, but there'll be other people asking for EPDs simply because um, it's a must-have, I guess, in terms of them ticking the boxes that they need to tick for their own
Right.
customers. So, yeah, a range of different reasons, but certainly it's become you know, a frequent request.
Hmm.
I think if we didn't have those EPDs now, we'd be struggling.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think the level of as people are starting to really get what the questions that they need to answer, and they're becoming more informed questions with
Yeah,
each passing week, aren't they?
yeah. Well, a reflection is, I did work for another Fletcher Building business unit years ago, probably 5 years ago, and it was a plastic pipe business, Iplex. Iplex had held EPDs for a really long time, probably 10 years or so, and
Yep.
we used to send them out, but no one knew what they were or what they meant. I shouldn't say no one, but most people didn't. We simply provided them to tick off environmental criteria in tenders and so on, but not many people were particularly interested in what was in them or how to use them. Um, and the change now, just 5 years down the track, for
Mm.
a business like Laminex with a with products that are good, that aren't a high impact product from a carbon perspective, a business as usual or an everyday request from us is an EPD. It's a
Yeah.
huge change.
Okay. Yeah. Um, Here's another question that's just popped up. How often do you think of updating this set of EPDs, and what will prompt an update?
Well, a number of things. So if something significant changes, it's 10%, is it, Steve?
Yeah,
Change. Yep.
if it's if any indicator is worse than 10%, you have to update them. But
Yep.
within the 5 year
Yep.
cycle, they're
So
valid for 5 years, but provided, you haven't changed a major supply of wood, and it might have a much higher carbon footprint, for example. The forestry practices might be very good, just to use a not a non-specific example. You would have to
yep.
update them, but if it's actually reduces your impacts, you don't have to update
That's
them,
right.
but you might voluntarily do that. And
That's
that's
right.
what we
So
found. That's what we
yeah,
find. A lot of people do that voluntarily within that
yeah,
5 year
that's.
cycle.
I was just going to say, if there was something that we did that significantly, I guess, improved um, our product earlier than that 5 year period, we would potentially look to update them, an
Yeah,
EPD. Probably,
yeah,
um, you know, that would be a particular product family rather than right across all seven that we
right.
have. Um,
Yeah,
Other than that, I guess we'll watch how things develop. I just spoke about iPlex 5 years ago and EPDs. I don't know what things will look like in the next 5 years. What I'm conscious of is the need for everything to happen quickly and for updates and up-to-date information to be available to everybody as quickly as possible. So how that might play out with EPDs, I don't know. Maybe there will be some technology that will um, you know, enable a business to update them more regularly. We'll just have to wait and see.
well, that's what's happening definitely has been happening for many years in the European market where EPDs have been around much longer. The use of what we call EPD, pre-verified EPD tools that can be used to develop them and update them internally much faster.
Mm,
That's definitely starting to gain traction here in Australia. It's really happening already in the concrete sector, but I know there is work behind the scenes to develop pre-verified tools that can be used by companies in Australia to really quicken
mm,
that process and make it cheaper, but also maintain that integrity in the
mm,
input data and the independent verification process. So it's got to be you've got to move carefully to make sure that whole process is credible. Yeah,
mm.
yeah. So one last question, then. Um, what's the cost benefit of multiple eco labels and who are the key stakeholders? Oh, that's a big one.
That's a big one. Um, I
But
think that
uh,
in the end, it's an individual business decision. There's no one answer for any for all businesses. So you need to understand what your customers um, are looking for, and make sure that you're responding to that, I guess, that market request. And
mm,
also, as I said earlier, look at what makes sense for you as a business. You can certainly over sticker your products. So this, this is my own personal view. Um, you're paying as a business, you're paying a lot of money to have labels. Look for those things that will help you improve your business and your product, and also satisfy your customers. And that will be different for every business. Certainly, our selection of labels reflect what we think will help us to improve, and what our customers are looking for from us. So that includes EPDs and, as I said, these other ones that are part of our portfolio of certifications.
right, okay. Thanks, Andrea, and thank you so much. We'll have to wrap it up there with the answers in that conversation. Thank you so much for making the time. We were hoping to have this conversation in person at our conferences, but this, I think, has been excellent conversation. So thank you very much for making the
Thank
time
you.
today.
Yep. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Andrea.
Okay.
I'm just going to share a couple of slides to finish off here today. And I know there's a couple of questions still outstanding, but we'll have to answer those offline. Um, I know this is a big table introduced very la at the last minute, but the good news is we do have this in writing and there'll be a fact sheet, a news item released tomorrow morning. Um, the big news from our perspective is that the Green Star Responsible Product Value Framework have recently increased the RPV values for Australasian EPDs. So that will really help um, in a number of areas that for projects seeking Green Star certification. I've put together this table, which will be available in our news item for everyone in Australia and New Zealand who's supplying Green Star projects. But so it's increased from 5 to 7. Now, well, what does that mean? Well, if you've got product credits such as responsible finishes, which is internal finishes, for example, flooring, ceilings, doors, windows, and the like. Basically, with a value of 7 RPV, you can meet that good. That's a good practice product, and that meets the requirements for credit achievement. 40% of products have to have a value of 7 RPV or greater. For a exceptional performance, you have to have 60% value of products having a value of 7 or greater. Um, so with these two credits, the responsible finishes and responsible systems, you can sort of see that Australasian EPDs meet those requirements. This is an option, a different way of thinking about it. You might have to get other certifications to satisfy if people are using that option within their Green Star certification process. Responsible envelope and responsible structure. An Australasian EPD is not enough on its own to get accredited achievement or exceptional performance. But I think, as Andrea has very well illustrated through her example, working with some other certifications that are appropriate in your sector will really help you um, get your customers over the line to meeting these Green Star requirements if that's what they're seeking. So, as I said, this will be out on our website tomorrow morning. Um, please get back to us with any questions you might have. Thank you and Merry Christmas. We've gone a bit over time and I see people dropping off, but thank you and Merry Christmas to you all. A recording will be available on our website shortly, so we can, if you haven't been able to attend or a colleague has got called away, any further information, there's our my email and our general email there. Yeah, wish you all a Merry Christmas and thank you very much for coming. See you,
Thanks.
Andrea. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Bye bye.